and it is about that time where we get to actually get into this particular conversation and get to understand what exactly we need to be talking about right now as far as teenage pregnancies are concerned. About 3.5 years ago, in the middle of COVID-19, right here on KUTV Primetime News, we addressed the issue of teenage pregnancy, which had actually gone to higher levels than we had ever seen in the past. And of course, that was a reason for us to actually talk about it and see how we can address the issues. And the issue of teenage pregnancies continues to linger in our societies, especially here in Kenya, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. And joining me is Namulanda, who is an associate legal counsel, strategic litigation at Kelin. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with an experience in litigation, advocating for human rights. And of course, we are talking tonight also about the Red Card campaign, which is working towards eliminating and reducing the effects of teenage pregnancies in our country by targeting 20 counties in the country. And of course, that is expected to have ripple effects to the rest of the counties in the Kenyan Republic. Therefore, let's get into this conversation. Be sure to talk to us on our Twitter at KUTV_Kenya, YouTube KUTV Kenya Live. Give us your feedback on teenage pregnancies, even as we get to begin our conversation now. Namulanda, karibu sana to this particular conversation.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin by you telling us who you are in detail. I know I have said a few things about you, who you are in detail, what you do for Kelin and any other organization in your capacity as an advocate of the High Court and an advocate of human rights as well.
Okay, so my name is Namulanda. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I work with and for the Kenya Legal and Ethical Issues Network on HIV and AIDS, that is Kelin. Kelin, we work on and towards promoting and protecting health-related rights. This also includes on advocating for sexual reproductive health rights. So basically our work revolves around Article 43 of the Constitution, which is that every citizen of Kenya has the right to the highest attainable standard of health. So we do this through advocacy, through community education. We also do legal representation for persons who their health-related rights have been violated. Yeah, so we work in collaboration with other organizations in just ensuring that every citizen of Kenya enjoy their right to the highest attainable standard of health. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing. And it's good to have you on the set tonight.
Thank you.
As we address the issue of teenage pregnancies. Now, allow me to talk to the viewer just one more time before we get deep into this particular conversation. The campaign we're about to talk is called a Red Card campaign. And I want to show you something on my phone. This is what a red card, I wish I had a real red card, but this is actually how a red card looks like. I know you know the red color. And or maybe, yeah, I hear that's the actual position where you're able to see me from your house and from wherever you're watching us from. This is how a red card looks like. Just for a moment, ignore that this is part of my phone. But that's how a red card looks like. And it takes me back to one of our favorite sports. Is actually called the beautiful game, where we see red cards being given. And apart from that, we have a yellow card, which is more of a warning card, and a red card in the game of soccer or football, depending on the country that we are talking about here. When you're given the red card, it means it's time for you to go off the field. And therefore, I just want you to have that in mind, just in case it's helpful in this particular conversation. And I'm going to go back to you, Catherine, and curious to know, what is this Red Card campaign? Does it involve anyone being sent off the field? What is this Red Card campaign in this context of teenage pregnancies?
Yeah, so the Red Card campaign was informed by the Kenya Demographic Health Survey of 2022, which in the survey it highlighted the number of teenage pregnancies in Kenya between young girls between the age of 15. So based on this, through the survey, they were able to see the counties which had the highest number of teenage pregnancies. For example, there was Nairobi, there was Kakamega, there was Kisii County. So through this, and the Red Card campaign was the highlighting of the counties were divided into two parts. There's one counties which have the highest number of teenage pregnancies, and also counties which contributes to the highest percentage of teenage pregnancy. For example, we have Samburu County. So through this information, the Red Card campaign is able to issue these red cards to these governors to enable them to take action to work towards the reducing of unintended teenage pregnancies in Kenya. So it is a call to action for this county governors to take action and towards elimination of unintended teenage pregnancies in Kenya. Yes.
Amazing. Just before we need to take a very short break so that we allow us Robert to also come into the conversation. But just before that, you mentioned something very important that I would want us to address before we take a break and come back. You mentioned something very important about counties like Samburu, which are contributing to the rise in teenage pregnancies. Is this about the cultural practices that they entertain?
Yeah. So when it comes to teenage pregnancies, there are a number of factors that contribute to that, and one of them is harmful cultural practices. The Constitution itself, is the Supreme Law of Kenya, says that children must be protected from harmful cultural practices, and this includes, for example, teenage pregnancies or even child marriages. So when you have child marriages, ideally you'll have teenage pregnancies in this area. So we can say that harmful cultural practices are a big contribution to unintended teenage pregnancies in Kenya. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Just I think it's time for us to take a very short break so that we allow the other guests also to join us. Yes, and of course we'll be coming back with Robert Waweru, Program Advisor of Kenya Human Rights Commission, which is responsible for the Red Card campaign in itself. And dear viewer, we are back with this particular conversation about teenage pregnancies, and we are looking today at governance and accountability in addressing this particular menace that is teenage pregnancies in our country. And as I told you before we took a very short break, that Robert Waweru is going to be joining us from Kenya Human Rights Commission, which is responsible for this Red Card campaign. And just on a light note, just if you've forgotten, this is how a red card looks like. And I told you in the game of football or soccer, once you're given that, you're off the field. And I think Robert is a person that I'm going to ask the same question because he seems to, I'm just suspecting that he loves soccer. And so, Robert, karibu sana to this conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. Robert is a program advisor at KHRC, that is Kenya Human Rights Commission. Just tell us what you do in a nutshell.
Yeah, so as you said, my name is Robert Waweru. I work at the Kenya Human Rights Commission. I am a program advisor of, among many other things, sexual reproductive health and rights. Yes. Amazing.
Karibu sana to this conversation.
Asante.
And we had just introduced it, and Catherine had done a fantastic job in telling us what this Red Card campaign is. I want to hear your perspective now that you have heard of soccer. Does it mean there's someone being kicked off the field in this campaign, or what actually would be happening in this particular campaign?
Yeah, thank you very much. As you said rightly, yes, I'm a big soccer fan. I'm a big Arsenal fan.
Oh, Arsenal, wearing some red. Okay.
Yeah, so as you know, in football, when you commit a foul, you're given, when you commit a mild foul, you're given a yellow card, which means you continue playing. Yeah. But now when you commit a serious foul, you are given a red card. In this case of teenage pregnancy, we are saying these individuals that we give the red cards, they have committed a very serious foul in football parlance. That is by abetting these teenage pregnancies in the counties that they are in charge of. They are in charge. Yes.
All right. And before we took a short break to allow you to come into this conversation, Catherine had mentioned a few counties like Nairobi and Kakamega, which have the highest number of teenage pregnancies, and counties like Samburu, which have contributed to the rise of teenage pregnancies. Yeah. Why are these counties being red carded?
Yeah, so we looked at the statistics from the Kenya Demographic and Health Survey that was released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics in 2023. And we identified the counties that had the highest number of teenage pregnancies. And we had two categories of these counties. The first category is with counties that had the highest number in terms of the teenage girls that had become pregnant. And that's why we had Nairobi leading, and then we had the other counties that are following. And then we also had the highest counties that had the highest percentages. So the difference here is that you'll find that a county like Nairobi, for example, they had 452 teenage pregnancies. But when you look at in terms of their percentage, that's about 8% of the population of the county. But if you go to a county like Samburu, they had about 200 and something, but it's I think 50% of the girls, the teenage girls in that county. So we had to have these two categories where we look at counties that have the highest number of teenage girls, and then also counties that are contributing per capita in terms of the teenage pregnancies. And so we came up with this list of 20 counties that were leading in teenage pregnancies. This is based on the KDHS statistics that came out in 2023. So we decided to call these governors to account. Of course, we acknowledge the fact that these statistics were collected before these governors were elected, because most of these governors actually knew they were elected in 2022 in August. And these statistics were collected in the previous year in 2022. But what we are saying is that when you look at these statistics, and even when you go back to the previous statistics, the previous KDHS has in 2003, in 2014, and now this one of 2023, the counties that or regions basically that lead in teenage pregnancies are still the same counties. So there's nothing that has changed, even with the new leadership of these governors. And actually, it's a wake-up call. We are actually calling upon these governors to do something, because their counties actually have been leading for all these years when you look at all the statistics. So we are telling them, if you don't do anything now, we will still continue to call you to account and shame you going forward, even next year and the other year and the other year, if you don't take very decisive actions now to address this problem.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for those insights. Let me go back to you, Catherine. This issue is big and has always been big in this particular country. And when it comes to the issue of human rights, really, when it comes to teenage pregnancies, we are at war, like you had hinted, sometimes between traditional African culture, which encouraged even teenagers to get pregnant and to be married off at a very tender age. This issue is a big issue. What makes it a legal issue as an advocate?
Yeah, so I think it's because it leads to violation of human rights for children. So our constitution, which is the supreme law of this country, says that under Article 53, which is the article of the constitution that provides on the rights of children, it says that every children has a right to free and compulsory, it's even compulsory basic education. Every child has a right to shelter, nutrition, and health. Every child has a right to be protected from abuse, neglect, violence, which also includes sexual violence. So I think an intended pregnancy initially is a violation of these human rights. When these young girls are getting pregnant, meaning they are not going to school, it will result in them not going to school, meaning they are not enjoying their right to education. These are young girls, even at the age of 10, getting pregnant. Are they getting the appropriate health care? Which also goes to contravention of their right to the highest attainable standard of health. When they are going to these health facilities, are they getting the appropriate health information? So, and also they have a right to be protected from abuse. How are these girls getting pregnant? Who is getting these girls pregnant? Our law is very clear that a person below the age of 18 years cannot consent to having sex. So who is having sex with these kids? That is resulting in them getting pregnant. And when they get pregnant, are we taking action to ensure that they are going back to school? Because I think even if a girl has gotten pregnant, if we actively help, and if we actively educate them and help them so that they can go back to school and continue to enjoy their right to education. So I think it's a correlation of violation of different rights that is continue to being violated by us not taking any action.
Right.
Yes.
And still on that, you mentioned a few stakeholders in the life of that teenage girl that I'm picturing in my head.
Yeah.
And part of the action you're saying that should be taken is knowing who is responsible for this particular issue. So who is actually responsible for resolving the issue at hand?
I think we are all responsible. That is from the national government to the county government to the communities, up to the parents, up to the teachers, because the even though the health is devolved, the national government still has an obligation to creating of health policy and educational policies. So how if it's a shared responsibility between the national government and the county government, if the national government is creating policies, is it cascaded down to the county government? Is the county government ensuring that the teachers, the health caregivers, health facilities, are they getting the adequate training to ensure that these kids are aware of their rights? Are we as communities taking accountability, ensuring that the perpetrators of this sexual violence against these teenage girls, are they being reported in the justice system? Are these cases being reported? Is actual justice? Because as I've said, the law makes it an offense to have sex with a child. So if it's an offense, are these perpetrators being taken to court? Are they getting punitive punishment for their actions? When it comes to our teachers through the Ministry of Education, do we have a reporting mechanism for these skills when they go to school? What are the Ministry of Education actively ensuring that when you know in a certain school that we have a high percentage of children getting pregnant, are we ensuring that once these children have given birth, are they going back to school? So it's a shared responsibility that cascades from the national government to the county government to the teachers to the community, even us, to me, between you. This is a form of awareness in saying that also these kids need to be educated on their rights. Yeah. So I think it's a collective shared responsibilities on all of us.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, my director tells me we have 2 minutes to the end of the conversation, and I want to make the most of this time. Yeah. So I'm gonna come back to you, Robert, and let's talk about the ground. Yes. There's a demographic survey that has been done to come up with the statistics that we are talking about. What validates that on the ground? What validates that survey? And as you answer that, let's also stay on the ground. What is being done away from the boardroom now on the ground? Because you seem to be actually the man on the ground. What is being done on the ground to make sure that next year at a time like this, we are mentioning fewer numbers?
Yeah, so as my colleague said, this is a societal problem and it requires a societal solution. All of us, whether it's the national government, whether it's the county government, whether it's schools, parents, all of us, the civil society organizations, we all have to play our part. But I think there is one critical aspect that we have to insist, which is all these problems are actually contributed by lack of information. So it's up to the stakeholders that have the mandate, which is government, to be able to allow the comprehensive sexuality education for our young children, so that they can get age-appropriate sexual education. If they were getting that, we will be able to deal with probably a half or even 2/3 of this problem, because this is the biggest gap that is contributing to this challenge, of course, coupled with the other challenges. Yeah. So that's, for me, I'd propose that to be as the first intervention. Of course, with other interventions that other stakeholders need to implement. Governments, as she said, at the national level needs to develop policy, and then people at the county level and ground level, as you're saying, they need to implement those policies and frameworks so that we can tame this menace. It's a big crisis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just allow me to put you on the spotlight one more time. You're the program advisor for KHRC. Yeah. Are there practical programs running in these countries as at yet? Are we still in the boardroom? Are we rolling out things on the ground to actually curb this
no, of course there are people who are there are many people who are working on the ground. For us as a human rights organization, as KHRC, we our work is to really advocate and to call to account people who are violating human rights. So we don't do really work at the ground level in terms of service provision or service delivery. So, but I'm sure there are many other non-government organizations or even government organizations that are actually trying to do something in the ground. There are many CBOs, whether they are church-based organizations, and all these organizations, they're trying to do that. But for us as a Kenya Human Rights Commission, as a national human rights organization, our work is to hold accountable individuals, whether they are in the state or they are non-state, anybody who is violating any human rights, in this case the rights of teenagers,
Yeah.
to be able to call them to account, those people who are responsible for that, and then those who are the perpetrators who are responsible, to be able to be processed through the criminal justice system, because this is a grave human rights violation, and these teenage girls need justice. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Catherine, as you wind up, you mentioned something very important about the human rights. And you talked about these human rights in the Article 53, I believe?
Yeah, 53.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are the legal implications of us remaining silent on this, on the violations of these particular rights?
So I think one of them is the violation of the right to education, because we say when someone interferes with you enjoying one of your rights, they're actually violating your rights. So I think one of them is violation of the right to education of these young girls, because this results into school dropout. There's also violation of the right to health, because when young girls as early as 9 or 10 or even are getting pregnant, it results in health complications. Their body is not even mature to carry a pregnancy like that. So I think it's also that. There's also violation of their rights under Article 43 and Article 53, when you say children have a right to be protected from abuse, and this abuse includes sexual violence. So are we allowing these kids to be sexually violated like that? And are we holding the perpetrators of this crime? Are they actually being taken to court? Because we have some counties where they do kangaroo courts, where even if it's a case of defilement, you're taking it to be sorted out by elders. But by doing this, you are not protecting the child, you are protecting the perpetrator of this crime. So we need to create even more awareness on ensuring that when it comes to sexual violence, we're actually taking them through the court, because the Sexual Offences Act has established very punitive punishment, which acts as a deterrence in ensuring that violation of children stops. There's also the issue of discrimination, in that we are having these girls are facing stigma. They can't go back to school, meaning they are being discriminated by virtue of their age and also the virtue of their pregnancy. So it's a continuous violations of their right, even when we are not taking the appropriate legal actions. And even under the Constitution, under Article 24, it says that there's not Article 24. The Constitution places an obligation on the government to ensure that there's progressive realization, for examples of the right to health and also the right to education. So in the government not taking action through the Ministry of Health, through the Ministry of Education, that actually violating these rights of these young girls. So it's a intersectionality of violation of different rights, and we can actually hold these people accountable in violations of these rights. Yes.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I think there's an itching point.
Yes.
10 seconds.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that teenage pregnancies don't only violate rights under the Bill of Rights. It actually violates even other socioeconomic rights. I can just give you an example. When you look at the statistics, when a teenage girl gets pregnant, they usually get a second pregnancy immedately after the first pregnancy. So and when you look at the percentage of the girls who are getting pregnant are the ones that coming from the poor background. So this means that it continues to be a cycle. And then also you also find that a teenage okay.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to call you back, ladies and gentlemen. It seems time has flown out the window. We shall be sure to bring you back, because this issue is huge and it continues to affect us. And one of my first questions next time is going to be how we take these laws and these rights to the Catholic courts and the Council of Elders in our cultural settings. So thank you so much, Robert Waweru, Catherine Namulanda, for joining us tonight. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you for having me.